Welcome to the Big Kickoff Football Show. We've got Mr. Neil Dobbs and David Bugle from thebigkickoff.com and myself, Roy Shanahan. Now, this afternoon, we had Leeds against Liverpool, and Neil, this is a game that I thought Liverpool might be challenged a bit. There might be a bit, from last year, you looked at the game, you said, right, Bielsa's going to have these pressure eyes, and it just didn't materialise for them.
Yeah, there's a kind of a team here with Leeds. I wrote about a couple of weeks ago when Man United dismantled them. And actually, I was saying before the game today, Liverpool should just do what United did, sit back, and when you get a chance, hit them on the counter as quick as you can. But Liverpool don't do that. Liverpool play to their own tune. And the game was very, very open. Like the first 10 minutes was end to end. You know, the crowd got behind Leeds. It seemed like a great atmosphere. But Liverpool just took them apart. I thought they could have scored 5 or 6. They were very impressive. Leeds, I don't know, like they were saying it on Sky Sports that this is a couple of times now they've gotten humbled by some of the top 4, top 6. And that was definitely the case. Like Leeds will never give up. They're gamey, the way they play. It's high octane. They're getting stuck into you. They got a little bit of joy kind of through Harrison, maybe wide left, wide right. But other than that, I thought they just played into Liverpool's hands by leaving them sometimes 3v3 at the back. Didn't do themselves any favours.
Absolutely. David, what did you make of Liverpool's performance? I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, these are challengers. You know, why aren't people talking about them? Firmino, as we said, it already looks like he's being pushed aside for Jota's goals. So it seems to be a team which, including the back line coming back, has added a lot on last year.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and this is fans, by the way, I think more so than pundits and guys in the industry, it's because of everyone else has bought and Liverpool haven't. So therefore they think Liverpool have stood still and everyone else has improved. And that's the biggest reason why fans are kind of not really mentioning them all that much. As now, some experts like Neville was kind of almost waxing lyrical about them again a few times today that he did like a season or two ago. But Liverpool just under the radar in terms of transfers without a shadow of a doubt. But that's the only reason. Like as the form that they showed in the 2 previous seasons, if that's remotely still there, they're title challengers. It's as simple as that. And at the moment, the evidence is there that it possibly is. The back line looks a bit more, like a hell of a lot more assured than it did last year. It looks very similar to what it used to be. And Moisley didn't give up as much as I thought they would to Leeds today. And maybe they not sat back too much, but they just seemed to give loads of space to the 3 boys, and then of course they made hay. Now the only criticism, and it's not even a criticism, but the 10 minutes after they got the goal, they were really laying it on thick to Leeds, and it was like, get the second goal now and this game is dead. And it didn't happen. And then of course last year's fan comes out and me going 1-0, you know what's coming, here comes the equaliser. But thankfully it didn't work out that way. So that was the only bit of and it wasn't even real nerves. It was just like, the killer goal would be nice here, because then that dampened the crowd as well, you know, especially with crowds back. You know, they do play a factor, and Leeds probably would have wilted if it was empty compared to the full house it was today. But yeah, I think going back to what you said, I think it's just purely down to the fact that they haven't bought, everyone else has, and that's why fans more so than football people are kind of not giving them as much of a chance as they are with City, Chelsea and United.
Yeah. Neil, who impressed you for Liverpool today?
I think Salah looked good. I think he was a Firpo. He gave him an awful tough time. He was struggling to get into him. He was getting rolled quite a lot. He was getting too close. He was getting too physical. And Salah is small, stocky, low centre of gravity. I thought Salah ran him ragged. And I think they identified that early, and you could tell Salah was up for it. He was going at him 1v1. And Salah doesn't do that with everyone, but when he fancies it, he'll go at you. I thought he was good. I thought Thiago, I think looked a bit better today. I think he seems to have a bit more fresher look about him. He was doing some clever things, just kept the game tipping over between him and Elliott. Both did very well. I like that midfield there with Fabinho in the hold, and then allowing them to do their work. But they were the standouts for me. Definitely the younger lads. Elliott was really, really good today.
Yeah. What did you make of the sending off? Obviously that changed a lot in the game. The game was dead and buried really then. Although Leeds did step it up after that, funnily enough. But what did you make of the challenge? Was it a red card? Was it endangering the player? Obviously, he broke his leg, but do you think it was on purpose?
I don't think it was on purpose. I think he went to get him with the first leg, and wasn't it the training leg that kind of did the damage? So you can't, I guess by the letter of the law, you're out of control of your body once you've kind of gone through him. But very, very unlucky for that scenario to happen. A couple of minutes later, Manny got involved, one on the far line, exactly the same, but obviously got away with it. It's just unfortunate. And listen, in football, sometimes these things happen where accidents happen, players clash. And for Elliot as well, a kid that's been tried and trusted, and he's been put into the spotlight now. And Jurgen Klopp really has given him a vote of confidence. Even today, they left Henderson on the bench, and him and Thiago started. Very unfortunate. I hope he won't be out for a long time, because this kid looks like he has that kind of talent that's needed to succeed.
Yeah. Dave, what did you make of it? When I seen it first, I actually thought it was a great tackle. I thought he hooked the ball and came back. But when you're seeing it from a different angle, he never actually connected with the ball. And if you don't connect with the ball, it's definite foul. I didn't think, as Neil said, I didn't think, the red card. I kind of agree with the red card now, because if you don't get the ball, it is a dangerous tackle, because you've trailed in from behind. And I actually think the broken leg factor should come into it when you're using VAR, because I think, okay, he has come in reckless. You will see loads of challenges like that, and people will get away with it. And I think even the referee didn't even blow up for that as a foul. Yeah. So it was only when he seen how bad he was when Salah kind of brought the attention.
Yeah, and I'd like to think the majority of people would realise that, like, especially if you look at Struik, or apologies if I mispronounced him, I don't even think he's looking at Harvey Elliott. He's very much focused on the ball, and he's trying to get it. And I don't think the intention was to hurt at all. Well, I think it's fairly obvious it wasn't. But I think Adrian Silva, they mentioned, Andre Silva at Everton, and Son got sent off for something similar. Well, not something similar, but he broke the leg, and that was a factor in getting sent off. And I think it eventually got rescinded. I'm not saying this is going to happen this time, but I think I think a lot of people realize, like, that was never the intention. It was just one of them unlucky things where, obviously, Harvey Elliott, the worst possible thing that could happen, and you can see where it pauses what happened, and it was just shockingly bad timing. But I'm not kind of too, like, I don't want to sound like I'm a Liverpool fan, but I can understand why he was sent off. But at the same time, if he hadn't have been, I wouldn't be here banging the table going mad that he didn't, if you know what I mean, because I don't think he really was trying to do him. It was just one of them very unlucky things where, obviously, Harvey Elliott's had a bad injury. But can I just ask a question? Because Neil mentioned it, and it was just something that I was thinking watching the game, and it'll probably more to you, Roy, being more of a neutral. Like, I was impressed with Thiago today, and I've been impressed with Thiago a little bit, and I'm just wondering, are we starting to see the real Thiago? Because, like, before he came over, it was like the man walked across the English Channel from Germany. Like, the guy was a god, the way everyone waxed lyrical about him. And then when they seen him, they were very underwhelmed. But is this the real Thiago? And he's actually a quite solid, consistent midfielder who loves to get on the ball and make things happen. But for some reason, we all thought this guy was literally a footballing god that came down from the heavens, the way they waxed lyrical about him. And maybe now they'll treat him like a good, honest, professional footballer that he is. And he's actually a fairly consistent and potentially important part of Liverpool's midfield.
Yeah, I think that it takes time to settle for some players. He probably had to settle in. There's a lot of expected from him at the start. So sometimes you're never going to meet those expectations. Yeah. I think I wouldn't go overboard either. He's played a couple of good games. It's a bit like people going overboard about Pogba, because he's played 3 decent games at the start of a season where he's had 6 years previous, and so I wouldn't get too overhyped about it. But I would say that it's very likely that he's only settled in now, and you may very well see the best of him, and I hope so. Neil, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, remember in the beginning, Dave, you'd know more than anyone as well, the amount of tackles that he made. Remember these?
Yeah, and he won loads of headers and stuff, and it was kind of like, because everyone kept talking about what he does on the ball, and he's a magician, and I'm like, I've never seen it at Bayern, but for some reason, he came over with this mad reputation that I didn't know he had. And then, of course, I haven't seen it at Liverpool, and I'm just thinking, is this what he really is? Which is just a good, honest professional. I'm not saying he's going to take over Liverpool, but I think this is his level, and I think it's good enough for me for now. But I'll never see him as the main man or anything like that. But Maybe
I just thought he was just unusual the first few matches that he played. Remember, he got the injury, and then when he came back, he was just getting himself into just, I would say, uncharacteristic situations where he was diving in, he was fouling, he was getting booked early in nearly every game. It just seemed to be like messing with his head or something like that. But he definitely seems more settled now. You can see in his body language the way he's playing. So again, don't forget, Liverpool would play Thiago differently than he played at Bayern. They were saying, will he be in the six? Where, of course, Liverpool prefer Fabinho. And maybe just the different partners that he's had last year, where he had quite a few. And a lot of times it wasn't Henderson and it wasn't Fabinho. But maybe now he's found more of a kind of tune with the team.
Dave, is Bielsa one of the most overhyped managers in world football? There has been a lot said by different people that he's a great coach, etc., etc. He got them up from the championship where others failed, and that's fair enough. He got them to mid-table last year, which everyone praised him for. I thought there was overpraise last year. I thought that there was, well, they worked hard and people were saying these are fantastic. They'll score loads of goals. They'll concede loads of goals. That doesn't necessarily make a fantastic team, but he did a good job last year. No more so than anyone else who finished in mid-table or slightly above him. And we've had teams who have come up, been promoted and had unbelievable runs in the top half of the table. Kind of seeing now at the moment, at the start of this season, where the energy seems to be sucked out of him and people are still going on about how good he has been. There was no pressing today, very little pressing, as in a unit on a consistent basis. I thought Phillips in the centre midfield looked poor in the first half. I thought Matip got the ball in the first half, passed through two of them, ran through two of them, and the two of them stopped, let him go by. He got on the ball, stood on the ball for a while. Not one of them turned around and jogged back to look and try and get a tackle in. I just thought that they're a little bit of a shadow of themselves, as Neil had said before. But I don't see, I have never seen where the genius of Bielsa has come out. Can you explain that to me?
I wouldn't. It depends on, a lot of people say it who are the bluffers, and most of them are on Sky. Let's face it. Sue me, my name's there, go for it. Most of the bluffers are on Sky. Just like with Thiago, the guy, as I said, walked across water. This guy is unbelievable. Everyone on Sky said it. And of course, the rest non-Liverpool fans couldn't wait to see him be ordinary because he could walk on water. It's the same with Bielsa. Bielsa's a top coach. There's no denying it. I especially remember his Athletic Bilbao side. They were just such joy to watch, and they had a cracking European. They might have got to the Europa League final, if I'm correct. And the way he plays is the way he likes to play, and he gets his team to play it. And credit where credit's due. Does it last long? Obviously not, because I think what Leeds, and I noticed it myself today, and it was interesting that you bring it up. One of the things I was like, are the players getting bored of this now? Because it's all well and good doing this in the first year and getting 10th, but now when you're getting beaten consistently by the top boys, are the players going, sorry for the wrong word, but I'm sick of this now, And are they going to start going, listen, Gaffer, like, what do you do? And of course, everything changes and it just goes that way. And that's something that I just noticed myself today now, is the bubble bursting with the players. And if the disconnect between him and the players kicks in, Leeds are in trouble. So I can't see him changing his style. It's very pleasing on the eye. And when it really clicks in, it's great. But the only way he can maintain that is with recruitment. And they're not going to get much better at the moment unless they have hundreds of thousands. So I think it's a very interesting time for Leeds for me. I genuinely believe it. I can see it, like you said, they're starting to turn and the bubble's bursting. And if they have another big team in the next week or two and they get beaten 3 or 4-0 again, I can see a decision being made quickly.
Yeah, we'll go here to Colin. Thanks, Colin, for the message. Leeds have no plan B, a bit like Liverpool at the start of Klopp's reign. It is unsustainable in the Premier League. Neil, do you want to comment on that one?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, look, what's it they say about the geniuses? Plan A is plan A. Plan B is do plan A better. And I think that's what Bielsa does. He doesn't change. He won't change for anybody. There's a little bit, and I hate to say it because let's be honest, the guy is a world-class coach, but there's a little bit of naivety about it. And it's gas us saying it, but, I could see that happening today. Absolutely 100%. When they play Leicester, I can see it happening against Leicester, against United. the biggest problem for Leeds in their second season is that teams are learning now how to deal with them. And what they're going to do is they're going to sit in place and they are just going to keep hitting them on the break, and they will score because they're giving teams up chances. Just not chances, but they're giving it away too cheaply. So I think that's their biggest problem at the moment. It's that they run more than everyone. They do more presses. They do more sprints. That's all well and good, but can you maintain that for the duration that you want? And can the players, as Dave said there, have the hunger to play in that method week in, week out? And I think that's dead right to comment. Klopp tried it in the early days and he ended up running the players into the ground. I remember the likes of Adam Lallana nearly had a bleeding heart attack after playing 12 games in a row.
Coutinho only lasted about 55 minutes.
There you go. So it's hard to bring that culture in. Bielsa has that culture in the club, but it's very difficult to rinse and repeat in a 38-game league format.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that he's a good coach. There's no doubt that he's a good manager. And in all fairness, maybe I'm being a bit, I suppose, harsh on him. He doesn't set the standards of who's world class and who's not world class. But it has been there, as we know, as Dave has said, Sky Sports and the rest of them do like to put people up on pedestals and probably knock them back down again. So, he has a bit of a challenge on his hands. Okay. Manchester United 4, Newcastle 1, Dave. Ronaldo returns. It couldn't have went better for Manchester United. How did you see Ronaldo and the part that he played in it?
Like the first goal was just that typical striker goal, just hoping for the best, and guess what? He got it. Two heavily assisted goals as a keeper, let's be honest, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. The most interesting thing for the whole game was actually the first 40 minutes before the goal, because I thought they were just camping inside about 20-25 yards, going sideways and backwards, trying to do one thing and silly, impossible balls into him. Instead of just, that guy is the best there is. Don't worry about trying to put it right where he is. Put it in the area. The guy will go there. Even Matic was trying these crazy passes once or twice where I'm like, what are you doing? Just play the game normally. Get it wide. Do whatever you usually do. Don't worry about him. He's going to get goals. And, of course, the first goal he gets is because somebody decides to have a shot instead of trying to see where he is. And then they put him in because he was in space. Now, obviously, it wasn't the greatest shot, but it went in. But that's the only thing that I noticed. It was just relax, play your normal. And it's going to take a couple of weeks. But if they just do what they normally do, this guy is better than what any of them, any other striker that they have. Don't worry, he'll get the goals and put it in the area. He'll get there. You don't have to be obsessed with where he is. Now, Fernandes tried it once or twice and nearly came off, but it's like, stop. That's not going to always work. Just trust him. But the interesting thing, and this is the only interesting thing, because United were very impressive, but the only interesting thing is they could potentially be a bit vulnerable on the back line, because you only have one sitter at the moment, the way it's set up. And it was Matic today, which you need to make sure you get him out of there rapid, in my opinion. He's too, what's the word?
He's not mobile enough, Dave.
Not mobile enough. That's it. So, and no disrespecting them because they're top players, but you're not going to get a shift out of Cristiano Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, and Paul Pogba. They're very rarely going to work their socks off. Bielsa wouldn't, apart from Ronaldo, wouldn't have the other two doing a midfield shift. So they could leave themselves a little bit exposed against the better sides, which may or may not happen. Obviously, Maguire fluffed his lines for the goal. A better team. They gave Newcastle a couple of chances that they probably wouldn't have wanted to give them. So that's what will be interesting. But it's just overtime. It's one game. Who cares? You won 4-1. The place was buzzing. Ronaldo gets the 2 goals. So it's nothing to be too worried about, but it's just don't get too excited, because even Solskjaer, you could see it in his face, like in the post-match interview, he was nothing short of just going, yee! He was just dying to let out a scream or something. You could see that buzz in his eyes. But overall, impressive. And as long as they're smart and they're clever, it could get even better,
Yeah. Neil, what about trophies? Do you think Ronaldo adds the possibility of Manchester United challenging for trophies? Or is it just is there something else missing from their team, as Dave alluded to there? Maybe a sitting midfielder, because I actually think the back line is not too bad. And I think Dave is probably saying the exact same thing, but they haven't got the right protection there.
Yeah, I think, look, United have done great work in the last few years as far as their recruitment has gone. We were always, they were always kind of going for a quick fix or a guy that was maybe past his prime that you weren't quite sure whether you could get another trick out of him. But I think they've strengthened in the areas they needed to strengthen. They brought in Sancho, but in the back line, the Varane-Maguire partnership is interesting. Luke Shaw is like the reborn man. He's playing out of his skin. And then Wan-Bissaka on the other side is all out, proper defender. Whatever about him going forward. I think they've really done well. Even David De Gea, the re-emergence of him, because last year he was finished. So they've done good business. I think they're thereabouts as far as, like, let's be honest, they'll be in the top four 100% at the end of the year. I have a question mark, and it began with the Newcastle game as well. I thought they started brilliant. They were tearing them apart, but as the game wore on, and it made me think back at times to when Liverpool played when they were in their pomp there 2 years ago. How are United going to deal with these teams that are just going to come out and camp and they're quite satisfied to sit there on the 18, 20 yards, and they don't give you any space and they don't let you in? That'll be the next step for me. I think he has to play the one in front of the defence because they'll need to find a solution to unlock the defence rather than be defensively sound themselves. If Solskjaer's learned that in watching Pep and Klopp in the last couple of years, you need to be every other team in the Premier League, bar the top four, where you don't want to drop points. So for United to make the next step, the Ronaldo belief will help. That kind of presence in your dressing room will help. But they have to now start really turning the screw against everybody from position 5 downwards. Yeah. And that's where the next step of belief comes from.
I think how they do it, Neil, is they cross the ball in about a metre higher than everyone else can jump, and Ronaldo will be there. So that's
it's
one
mad.
possibility.
It's mad that Ronaldo's a target man, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ronaldo's Peter Crouch.
Dave, Nate Doyle says, do we think Donnie Van Der Beek could slot into the holding midfielder position? Donnie Van Der Beek is such a huge topic at Manchester United. I look at him; hasn't turned into a bad player just by leaving Ajax and going to Manchester United. His possession is good. He works hard. He's played in that position for Holland and Ajax before. I think Solskjaer and Manchester United are doing him an injustice. Either play him or don't have him there. Don't use him. But we go on to that. Do you think that he could fit into that position?
It's hard. I want to say yeah, because they obviously bought him for a reason, but I don't know what the reason is yet because he doesn't play him, which is just head scratching. He was arguably the main man who made it tick at Ajax. Of all the players that kind of got taken away when they did the run, Ziyech,
probably himself and De Jong.
Yeah, him and Frankie De Jong. Yeah, so sorry, Frankie would have been number one, but he was right behind him, kind of the wind beneath his wings, so to speak. He was the unassuming one, but it's just, I said it jokingly, lads, but has Ollie got a 20-year-old daughter or something? Because it's got the Zaha David Moyes vibe of it. Something's dodgy because I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Compared to Matic, I'd say yeah, absolutely. But I'd say that about a lot of players. But I just don't. I don't see it happening because imagine he comes back and really does hammer him. I think Ollie is probably almost afraid to play him now, just in case he does play well and then embarrasses him. I think he's made up his mind, and it's kind of like, right, it doesn't matter. I can't play him now, even if he is arguably going to improve us. But spin it, and make it out that you did something with him in training ground. You can just pretend that you turned it around. I listen. It's one of them head scratchers. Something I'd love to know. There has to be something or a nugget that we don't know and we'll never know, or maybe when he leaves, because.
And when you've seen him, Dave, he's obviously put the work in because he's bulked himself up. So he's done all that work now over the summer, or basically the end of last season. He's built himself up. And then for Matic to go in instead of him, that must knock his confidence.
Massively. And then he'll play against, pick a team in League One, League Two, in the Carling Cup. And they'll play 10 other young fellas and he's expected to be amazing. If you put him in with the rest of that team, he'll look great. It's a fact. You play better with better players, but the only games he's going to play is with the reserves and the dregs. So there's little or no hope for him. But it's a kind of story you'd love to see him kind of do something about it. But I just have a feeling Solskjaer is not going to let up on it out of fear that it comes good and makes him look bad.
Yeah. Jaden Sancho played, Neil. This is going to be Jaden Sancho watch because I'm still waiting for him to do something amazing. He was actually better in this game than he has been in any other game for United.
Wow.
Or any game I've watched him for Dortmund, but I didn't watch every game in Dortmund, so I'm not going to slate him for that. He was playing out on the left. He's not normally playing out on the left. He's a right winger. He came in a couple of times, a couple of good dribbles. He was a little bit more energised. He got himself into the game a little bit more. But still, yeah, I'm waiting to see why 80-odd million they've spent on him. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I watched the game in the pub and the sound wasn't the best and the angle of the screen wasn't the best. And I'm not joking. I didn't actually know he's on the field up to halftime. And that's
Right.
legit. I didn't even realise he's on the field. And then all of a sudden they zoomed in on him. He must have made a run inside the box. And the camera zoomed in and I was like, there's Sancho. And then I actually got on my phone and Googled, he's playing wide left. I didn't notice anything of value that he did, but it was funny because that brought him to my attention then. And in the second half, I was keeping an eye out. He's like, I know he's English and he's playing the English league now, but maybe like Thiago, like a few of them, it's going to take him a couple of games to get going. I still think the price tag is absolutely suffocating for a guy like that. For 80 million, you watch Jack Grealish for 100 million play for City. He's on the field. He's doing something. He's pivotal.
He embraces
they play him
it.
all the time. Yeah, he owns it. Great word. Yeah, and that's exactly what he does. And he's an aura about him now. That's probably an ego and an aura that's even bigger than it ever was. But the proof is in the pudding because he's on the ball and he's not hiding. Not all players can do that. We've seen players move to Man United before, and the burden. You remember Varane? Keane used to give him an awful going over. They just reckon he didn't mentally have enough to be a success at Man United, which tells its own story. So it's early days, yeah. I want to see a little bit more of him, but yeah, at the moment, kind of unassuming. He's just kind of finding his feet. We'll have a better idea maybe come Christmas.
Okay. John Light said, great win for Liverpool. We've talked about Liverpool, John, but if there's anything you want to discuss, send it back on to us. Okay, Dave, Spurs were very Spursy at the weekend.
Yeah.
Didn't get helped by the sending off. And well, what did you make of their performance overall in general?
Bit toothless in the game. There wasn't much happening. To be honest, it was weird because I was watching United and after about 35 minutes, like, Jesus, every game is 0-0. So I put on a channel where you're watching the main game, but when the goals come in, whatever. So I started to watch a little bit of bits and pieces of the other ones. And then it was like 20 minutes and still nothing happened. I was like, what is going on? But, Tanganga obviously getting sent off was the catalyst, really. But before that, they weren't offering too much. As I said, a bit toothless, bit like, I don't know, it's kind of like the bubble burst, away from home, hostile place. Palace is one of them, and it's a local derby. This is the one where you have to grit and grind. And I like most Spurs games where you have to grit and grind, it's not there. And that's the best thing I can say about it. When it really, you need to just be a bit ugly, they don't have it. They don't have it in them. Højbjerg's probably the only one who might try and do it, but when you're on your own, it's useless. Once again, Spurs being nice, except for Tanganga, he just got tick. But that's what happens when Spurs get tick. They start getting silly, and it was kind of coming. You could see it, and even Zaha was getting mouthy across the back line with them all. He felt it, he smelt it, and then of course, once the tackle came in, it was only going to go one way, and then of course, Palace put the squeeze on. But yeah, the way the game was going, the little bits I seen, it was very much this was the grind one. Like the other games went their way, but this is the one where you need to grind it, and just once again, Spurs don't have it.
That's what I was going to say to you, Dave. These are the type of games where you need to see out and get that point or 0-0 draw or whatever it is and not crumble. Neil, you look at Crystal Palace. Zaha was just on form. He really wanted it, whether he smelled blood, as Dave said, with the sending off. But one thing he showed us was that Emerson, the new right full, was way out of his depth, and I don't know what Matt Doherty's going to do there if he can't get in ahead of Emerson. Now that's his first game, but he looked like he hadn't a clue what was going on, that he hadn't played right full before, and looked like he played for Barcelona before, which obviously he did, and he didn't have to do too much defending. Crystal Palace is a great win for them. Zaha, it's probably one of those games that he's going to do it. What did you make on Crystal Palace? And it means a fantastic win for them because now there's a little bit of belief now behind Vieira.
Yeah, like he needed that badly, you know what I mean? Whatever about Arteta needing a win, Vieira needed a win. Like we've been watching them with interest, and we were saying in the early part of the show in the year that what are you going to get with them? You know, all these changes, all the guys they let go, new manager, new structure. You're getting rid of Hodgson, who's a stalwart of the club and really looked after them well. Zaha, as Dave was saying, they're about time he stood up because they need their stars to really produce now. And Zaha, I don't know, would he be the type of guy that's thinking to himself, I've missed my opportunity. I was the one they all wanted to buy and everyone's after me. So he kind of needs almost, I don't want to say resurrect his career, but he needs to kick on now. But that was the perfect game for him. He was up against a guy, as you're saying, it was like the rabbit caught in the headlights. And Zaha smelled the blood and got after him. But I was watching the pre-interview with Vieira, and you got a feeling that he recognised how big this game was for him and his team, and he obviously did a professional job, had them set up and ready to go. So fantastic results.
He could have gone to the vault a little bit and said, "Listen, it's a different Spurs team than what I would have played, but every year we played Spurs, this is what happened." And imagine one of his stories came true, and obviously they will, like he probably said they would, and he can sit there and say, "Trust me, trust in me." But like at the same time, they've only lost once in the 4 matches, ironically, kind of a bit unassuming. But just to hammer home exactly what Neil said, like anyone in the bottom half of the table, that 1 or 2 star players you have to shine. And when they shine, you have a chance. And Zaha did yesterday, and they need to get as that out of him as much as possible to survive. Like anyone that's down there, you know, whoever their main man is.
Yeah, and an amazing stat came out of that game where that was the first game ever in the Premier League for Harry Kane not to get a touch in the opposition box. So I thought that was an interesting one. We go on to Arsenal. Arsenal against Norwich. They finally scored a goal. They finally get 3 points. Neil, if they didn't win this one, they may as well have forgotten about it and just went to the championship. This was something they had to win. It's a nice little pick-me-up, but that's all it is, isn't it?
Yeah, so the chant was we're not getting relegated or something like that. But like, this is how bad it is at the moment. We're staying up. So Arteta came out and said, like, this is one of his happiest moments ever, you know, that he finally got over this hump. So, look, they needed that so badly, Arsenal did. We've been criticising Aubameyang and a few of them for the last few weeks, saying that their leaders weren't leading, that the big names on the pitch weren't doing the job. And then he comes up with the goals. So, look, it was...
he doesn't miss from 1 yard now.
He doesn't miss from 1 yard, like all the best, you know. But they had a scrappy kind of game, but Arsenal had a lot. I think it was like 30 shots. They really, really peppered them at times. So, look, they needed to get that out of their system. And at least now, you know, well, I'm not saying we stop talking about them as relegation candidates, but for Arsenal, they needed that so bad. But that's, huge for them. But let's be honest, it doesn't matter what way it comes, whether you play well or not. You just need to register that win and get it off the book.
One important word, Norwich. You know, don't get excited, Arsenal fans. That was a 6-pointer relegation battle. That was. That's all that was.
Yeah. Dave, when we looked at Norwich at the start of the season, and when we seen they got Billy Gilmore in, and we said, okay, they might be trying to get a little bit of quality in. They might be trying to get a little bit of Premier League experience. Yeah. Let's see what follows on after that. When you look at their side, Pukki's still up front. Again, there's not much else going on. Gilmore didn't start. It's same old Norwich. They might as well be relegated. There's no point in them being there, is there?
That's the fear factor now. Like no points, -10 goal difference. They've been spanked by the bigger teams like they have been before, like City and Liverpool, and even losing to Arsenal. That says a lot. And being hammered by Arsenal, it was only 1-0, but they were rightly hammered. The only good thing I can take from it is the fact that would have been a great game to learn for Mr. Omobamidele, around Ireland's own centre half, more so than playing for Ireland last week. That would have been a great learning curve. He really got a dose of reality of what it's like in the big leagues against these teams. That's the only positive I can take from it, and that's just on a selfish point of view. But yeah, Mr. Soft-spoken Farke might have to get a little bit more sterner in his voice because I'm fearing for them already after 4 games.
Yeah. Neil, Ben White and Gabriel started in the back line.
Yeah.
Is this their preferred centre-back partnership?
I think it has to be. They kind of play 2 holding midfielders as well. Maitland-Niles and Lokonga started. So, listen, that has to be the recipe for Arsenal. Actually, Ramsdale started as well for them, which was interesting. Because he came for what I would consider big money for him. But Gabriel, I always thought was the best of what they had at centre back. I'm not mad on a couple of the lads that keep making Chambers, and I don't know where he gets in there, but I would be having Ben White and Gabriel and Holding. I would hope that you can keep them two fit now, and maybe that's the blueprint going forward. They can build on that because, clean sheet, scored a goal, can't argue with that. But hopefully better things for Arsenal will come with a defensive partnership like that there.
Yeah, and if you're looking to win some money, put it all on Norwich getting relegated. It's a cert. Okay, Chelsea versus Villa, Dave, and the Lukaku show keeps rolling on, but the Chelsea show is rolling strong and steady.
Yeah, like it very similar to what we seen at the end of last season, but now they've just got that bit of magic up front who's putting the chances away that they were missing, unfortunately, with Werner and a few others. So, listen, top of the table speaks for itself. It's the actually, hold on, that was changed, but it's the four boys we said were going to be in the Champions League. They're already hitting there. And as we said, like, you have to beat everybody now, and then whoever probably wins that little mini league table might win the league. That's scarily how it could be this year, which is exciting, and I hope it does. So, as much as I'm a Liverpool fan, I'm excited, and it could be great to have a proper title race, but slick operation, and then obviously having him at the top line. Really nice finish for the second goal. I didn't see much of the game. I only seen bits and pieces from Match of the Day, so I can't go into any great strides about it. But just without a shadow of a doubt, the addition of Lukaku just seems to be not the final piece, but definitely the piece to put them in the bracket for championship credentials.
Yeah. What do you make of Aston Villa, Neil? They tried to play Watkins and Ings up front yesterday. Is that something you think that'll work for them? Or they're trying to change everything around to fit those two strikers in? Or should they just be playing with that one up front and he just makes a choice who it is?
Well, look, they had to try something different, I guess. Look, they'll be losing the Grealish assists/goals this year. They need to find a solution. They've bought, I think, reasonably well. I don't think Danny Ings would have gone to Villa thinking that he was going to warm the bench. I think he wanted to get in there and play. So obviously they would have had that in mind before they purchased him to make sure that they could accommodate both the side. Villa, like the bits I did see the game, I thought Villa they did okay. Like, they weren't brushed aside. They were even enough in possession. I thought Tyrone Mings had a bit of a howler at the back for him. He didn't really play well. But that part of their equation didn't function, whatever about the other end. Ollie Watkins will give you what he gave you last year as a sole striker, and he'll run into the channels and he'll hold up the play. Maybe outside looking in, I think they're better off trying to do something like that and accommodate Ings, because he'll definitely get you goals. And that's what's going to be the difference of whether they can repeat what they did last season and kind of push on. It'd be a good one to watch for the next few weeks to see what way he does it. And he has to bring in a couple of the new signings as well.
Yeah, Buendia missing, sorry, Roy. Buendia missing would have been important to feed the two lads. Him and Emi Martinez would have been out with the international clearance, and they're in quarantine. So he seems to be kind of going to be the main playmaker coming in. So if they're going to play with them two, they probably need him in behind them, feeding them,
Yeah. Brighton and Brentford, or Brentford and Brighton, 1-0 to Brighton. This is really, when you look back at the season, you look back at these games for, the relegation battle, and a 98th minute winner for Brighton, Neil. That's huge. It doesn't matter when, or if it's the last day of the season or the start of the season. These are valuable wins against people who are going to be down there with you.
Yeah, listen, and again, you don't want to lose to the teams that are going to be down at the bottom as well. It turns into a kind of a 6-pointer. You want to pull away from these guys. Brighton, listen, we talked enough about them. They create, but they just don't have that kind of natural goal scorer. They just lack it. Like we seen ourselves, you watched them a little bit more when Connolly was there, but they definitely create, but they just can't put it away. So yeah, win's a win. Push on.
Yeah. Dave, Brentford started off brilliantly, but was only against Arsenal. So, but now, how do you feel? We've seen it before with the likes of Blackpool, who came storming into the league, and then all of a sudden, a few results didn't go their way, and they started to drop back down the league table. Do you see anything in Brentford from the start of this season that tells you that they could be okay?
I certainly think they have a chance. I don't think there's any two ways about it. But the one thing that I've noticed I missed one of the games, but I've seen a good bit of them in all their games, obviously mostly against Arsenal, and even yesterday seen a good bit of that one. Tony is kind of almost the link man. He's almost the one putting them through. He's getting the ball fed into him, and then he's putting in dummies, I think. And it's kind of like, no, you need to be the last man putting the ball in the back of net, because all the chances went to Mbeumo and he missed every single one of them. While the one that any of them, Tony might at least put one of them away. So it's kind of like any chance he is doing it the other way around, and then Mbeumo being the one who takes the touch and put them through. Tony looks like a clever player, a smart player, and some of his true balls in the last few games have been very impressive. But it's like that's not what we bought you for. We bought you because you got 30-odd goals. So I'd rather Mbeumo and him switch around, and because unfortunately everything fell to Mbeumo yesterday and he just didn't take any of them. So if they could swap that around, get him banging in goals, and then all of a sudden the confidence of belief comes up, because like anyone who's down the bottom, you need your striker to get around the 15 goal mark, 10 to 15. You need them that when that one chance comes, you put it away. And as I said, swap them around and they have a cracking chance. And ironically, Brighton are in the European spots at the moment. Mental.
Neil, Leicester and Manchester City, 1-0 to Manchester City away from home. And when you look at this result, Neil, is this a huge result for Manchester City? Are Leicester going to cause the top 4 teams problems this year? When you look back at this, could this be a big one?
Yeah, I think it is big, because I mean, Leicester have had Man City's numbered a few times over the last year or two, where they've lulled them all. So, City went at them all guns blazing. First 30 minutes, I remember last year, there was City blew them off the pitch, and then all of a sudden Leicester got 1 or 2 chances, ball in the back of the net, and then City kind of crumbled. So Leicester know exactly their game plan. I'd say Brendan Rodgers just took out the folder from the year before, nailed it to the wall and said, there you are, lads, let's go and repeat this if we can. 1-0 is important for them because City are a bit miserly at the back, and they're kind of picking up that, I know they lost the first game, but they're picking up the head of steam now. A little bit worrying. I was scanning the teams there, even looking at City's bench. It's absolutely phenomenal. Like, they have some amount of talent, not even getting into the first 11. I wonder if Pep is playing maybe the long game. He's resting De Bruyne quite a lot now, making sure that he's right before he comes back. And isn't it great when you can afford to do that without playing them flat out every week? But it's a big win. I don't think Leicester are going to be in the top 4 this year, because I think the top 4 is going to be too strong. I think United, Chelsea and City all have their houses in order in Liverpool this year. So for Leicester to get anywhere near what they did last season, they'll be way punching above their weight. But yeah, a great result for City. I think that could be one of them. We're saying, Dave is saying there, the results against the top 4 are going to be important this year, but equally so, edging out them little 1-0s is a good sign for them, I guess.
Yeah, Dave, as Neil said, the bench was Sterling, Fernandinho, obviously Carson, Stones, Ake, Zinchenko, De Bruyne, Mahrez and Foden. So when you look at those players on the bench,
that's all.
You can understand why they're favourites for the league, but also really Pep shouldn't have any excuses. He should be winning this league.
Yeah, but it's also a bit of a talent to keep that happy, because that's why some of them don't necessarily build a squad that big. Even the great Ferguson wouldn't have had 22 superstars. He would have had the 5 or 6 where people would be going, you could get better than that, but what they bring and how they support the superstars is what it's all about. So there's a talent in what Guardiola does, in fairness, that I don't think a lot of them could do. And maybe it's because of his stature is why he gets away with it. So in fairness, you have to tip your cap to him to keep all of them happy. And then he's added to it with Grealish this year, but that's the only, the City, it's ominous, obviously, with Europe. And they it's more important. I'd say they won't admit it, but it is more important. So I think they'll very much, obviously they want to win the league to keep United, Chelsea and Liverpool at bay, but there'll definitely be stay clear of City when it comes to the fantasy football, lads, because whoever you put in, you get ready to take them out the week after. It's a disaster. But that's the only thing I'd be not worried. But if you're the other 3 supporters, you'd be a little bit excited, a little bit frustrating yesterday, only getting the 1 goal, because I know it's easy to say without the striker, but if they're not firing and they're a little bit off, and Leicester had the bit between their teeth, they're the games where maybe the draw or the draw might come that you wouldn't expect, because you've seen the way Silva celebrated. They knew that was that grinding 1-0 win where it could have gone the other way. And that's the only thing where that tiny little nugget is, that not getting that striker in, going to bite them on the ass somewhere. Probably not too much, but might be just enough with the form that the others are in at the moment. It might happen once or twice than they can afford, you know.
Yeah. The other two games on that day, Neil, were Southampton 0, West Ham 0, Watford 0, Wolves 2. Wolves got their first victory of this season. A very important one because doubt could sink in there quite quickly, all right. West Ham not blowing the league away like they were last year, but again, it's very early days as well. And Watford, what do we make of Watford? Again, could there be, when I look at the bottom three, again this year, last year it wasn't as clear cut. I can see 8, 9 of any of those teams down there that could go down because there's going to be inconsistency here. There's a lot of them on level par.
Yeah, I don't think, well, this could be wishful thinking, but I don't think you're going to see like a Sheffield United last year, someone that's cut adrift. I think there's quite
Norwich,
a few.
Norwich, sorry, Neil,
well,
they're gone.
There you go. But I don't think there's a couple of them are all going to be in good company, is what I'm saying. I think there's a few of them that are going to be that bad, which is good for them, I guess. It's going to be a real scrap. With Norwich, or sorry, not with Watford, they're only 6 games away from replacing their manager again, I'm sure. So you never know what they'll do. They'll throw something up. But yeah, I think they're going to struggle. They're going to lack goals. Same at Norwich, they're going to lack goals. They just seem they're lacking a big name player, someone that's going to, ignite them and get them going. So I'd be a little worried for them bouncing up. It's not like they did pull up a lot of trees in the transfer market. It's very difficult to bounce up from the championship and kick on. So they're obviously hoping they don't do like Sheffield United last year, where they just died a horrible death and it's over almost by Christmas. But I think they'll be in good company because there's a couple of teams that are going to struggle down there with them.
Yeah. I think we'll push on to the debate that Jurgen Klopp had during his press conference about Alexander Arnold. Dave, I'll start with you. He was discussing how he played for England. England played him a little bit further forward. He also mentioned that Trent was the best right full in the world. Now, I suppose he has to say that. Is Trent the best right full in the world?
No. And if somebody says because he crosses it well and scores goals, I win, because that's not your job. You're a defender. You have to defend. And then after that, if that's a bonus, that's bonus, in my opinion. And it makes a mockery of defending if you can get away with a guy who attacks and can't defend. I think he's lucky the fact that he's with Liverpool and he can get away with it because he's got three, because Robertson is a defender. Ultimately, he tries to be like Alexander Arnold, but he's not. That's the other little gripe I have to say. I hate the way he goes over and stands beside him with the free kicks. What are you doing? Get back into position. You're never going to take it. So just let Alexander, let Trent take it. Putting him in midfield, I don't think it's the right idea either, because that's why he's successful, because he's coming from deep and he's in space to be able to do what he's good at. It's like Beckham. The older he got and the pace was lacking, he drips into the pockets and he's able to do what he's good at. Put him into the midfield and he just gets swallowed up because you don't get the time. So for me, yes, keep him out there if you want to get the best out of him. But as regards the best right back in the world, there's not, he's up there. I'm not going to, I said it in jest. He's up there, but it's because of his defensive frailties. I will say nope, because that's the ultimate thing you need to be good at, and not crossing.
Okay. Neil, you have your say.
Yeah, he's not the best in the world, I don't think, but he would be the best attacking right wing back in the world. Probably one of the best cross set piece deliveries. His vision is phenomenal. He really is. He's a serious talent. And the reason why he works at Liverpool is because Liverpool afford him, as Dave said, a free rein to go up and down the right wing. So when Trent attacks, Fabinho drops in between the two centre halves. They practically have a back three at that stage. They've done this for years, and they allow. So he's their playmaking right back. He's more touches, more possessions, more controls than anybody else on the pitch, because Liverpool set up their game plan to get him onto the ball. The same way City do for De Bruyne, same way for Jack Grealish now that they're beginning to play his tune. And England don't. That's where the debate ends. And I agree with Dave. For England, absolutely no point playing him at right back if you're going to play the way England do, which is a very kind of a cat-mouse back line, very solid, two defensive midfielders, because they know the guys further up the field, your Sterlings and your Kane, will eventually get you goal. So I don't know if it's a debate really or not. For me, he's not the best in the world, but for Liverpool in the position and the way they play him, he is the best at what they want him to do, without a shadow of a doubt. But for England, absolutely not. So for Liverpool, that is his job: get up the wing, get the crosses, supply the bullets, and they compensate everything in their team to pivot and allow someone to cover for him. But today, even watching the match, Dave, you're probably seeing Harrison ran him a couple of times, ragged. Defensive wise, he's just not good enough a defender. So, he's not the best at both.
Yeah, I think, Dave, my opinion, I'd rather have Kyle Walker there. I like him. I think he's solid. He's got pace. He can go forward, but with City, he doesn't have to do much because he'll just give it to the rest of those players who do the job. So it is a little bit different. I like my defenders to be defenders first, and then you can do the rest. So who is the best right full in the world?
Good question. Come on, Dave.
I'm quickly scanning.
It's not, because right full has changed a huge amount, hasn't it? With the way football has changed. And we used to hear about Dani Alves, how he was the best right full. Jordi Alba, he used to be the best left full. But they actually weren't. They were just the best attacking players wide that Barcelona had, because they had most possession. They weren't tested in the back line as much as most teams. So it has changed an awful lot. And that's why I would look at Kyle Walker as a top
good all-rounder.
Good all-rounder. It's very, very hard to beat. You see him at the Euros. I thought
it'd be hard to poke a hole at that, because whoever you mention, you could say something like, if somebody said Wan-Bissaka, copy and paste the opinion about his defensive, because I'm going to be honest, lads, I still haven't seen it yet. Saint-Maximin got past him very easy again yesterday. I'm still waiting to see it. I have to keep watching him because I haven't seen it yet. So I need to start watching United every week, because that might be the course. Because when I don't see him, he's amazing, allegedly. So I have to start watching him every week. But he's shy going forward. Some of his passing yesterday was very, very simple and basic, and he couldn't do it. Joao Cancelo probably a bit in the Alexander Arnold bracket. Semedo, same thing. It was very impressive yesterday, but it was all attacking. It was all about that. So Walker has incredible pace. He's probably the best all-rounder. I'm not saying he's amazing going forward, but I don't think you have to be. It's not really your job. But he can do a bit of both, and he's been brilliant at City, the way he's adapted under him and the way he breaks that line. Do you know the way I say it to you? Sometimes you see him, somebody's running for 40 yards, and the players know as soon as that line's broke, and he does it himself, and credit where credit's due, and he puts it into the danger area. So, yeah, I'd struggle to kind of go against that, to be honest, Roy, compared to, as I said, I tried to scan all the countries and all the clubs, and no one jumped out.
No. Neil, no one's mentioned Seamus Coleman, the uttermost pro, very hard player to get around, doesn't get destroyed. You look at Trippier, Walker, Trent, Cancelo. What is a right full now? What is a left foot?
Yeah, the game has evolved, Roy, and that's it. And maybe it's evolved so much that's why people are getting crazy notions that your right full should be playing in centre mid. It's a mad world we live in, but definitely it's I think the freedom of attacking fullbacks now has changed the role. In an academy maybe 15 years ago, you would have been practicing your line, your cover, your defensive headers, all that stuff. Whereas I wouldn't think Trent practiced too much of that when he's at Liverpool. I imagine to have him out whipping balls in and getting involved higher up the field. Like for Trent Alexander Arnold, Roy, to be a right full in a top four side in England, who's the best league in the world at the moment, like the most quality, and to have the influence he has in a game from that position, it is still pretty remarkable. And whereas I would agree with you that Kyle Walker, for me, would be a better player than Trent, as in defensive-wise, cover. He does the things you want your defender to do. He's quick, he's aggressive, he's sharp. I think he's gotten a hell of a lot better even for England. But he would never be able to influence the game the way Trent does going forward and in the final third. So that just shows that he just has that extra little bit of magic. But again, it's because Klopp sets up the system to allow him to be that. But it's still pretty impressive. Your right full is your playmaker. No matter what bloody team you're in, it's impressive.
Yeah, probably a little bit worrying for them when it comes into Europe. Then I'm looking at the gaps that we've always seen there. That they've always had huge gaps going into in behind Trent, and I suppose that's why, Dave, the centre backs were so important for them, to cover up and sweep up those gaps that was left there.
Yeah, but I would put whoever's the sitting midfielder just as important, because the many a time I've watched Liverpool, it's a Henderson or Fabinho who's doing the last ditch tackle on the wing. Whoever's back in more so. The other lads remain rigid, but it's more the central midfielder who comes across, and usually it's Henderson, but obviously Fabinho's been doing it as of late, and it's more them than anything, and they slow it down to hopefully get everyone back into the positions they need to be in, because obviously sometimes the centre halves are up there for corners as well. But the way Liverpool do it gives him the best opportunity to do what he does best, because as you've seen on a few occasions where Liverpool are pinned in, everyone picks on him, and there's a reason for that, So he does have a kryptonite, and that's defending.
Well, we did find out that Emerson Royale is not the best right foot in the world, so we can all agree on that one. Neil, I'm going to ask you one final question. Who is the best right full of all time?
Oh.
Holy moly. Steve Finnan.
Steve Finnan. Had to be Liverpool, didn't it?
He's not even the best Irish right back. Dennis Irwin, man. Dennis Irwin. Rob Jones.
Dave, who came to your head?
He's the anti-Trent Alexander Arnold. Good defender. Couldn't score for shy. Yeah, Dennis locally, and maybe Cafu was deadly though, wasn't he?
Was Cafu not an early Trent?
Oh, yeah. Probably everything.
That's
I'm not
the way
going to
they
pretend.
played, wasn't it? Him and Roberto Carlos, they played that early before Barcelona even played it.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend I remember Cafu's every game and say he was a good defender. Like, I'll be honest with you, but he was a joy to watch, and probably because he was doing something different than anyone else did. And I suppose when you look at it like that, but Dennis for Ireland United, man, that guy never let you down. Everyone calls him the 7 out of 10, but he wasn't. He was an 8 out of 10. Like, he was a little bit above the 7. I'll give him a 7.5 out of 10 every week. He was brilliant.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. So we're all happy enough with that. So Dennis Irwin is the best right full ever played the game. Listen, thanks very much, everyone. Dave, Neil, thanks very much, and everyone else who contributed tonight. And we'll see you